Diogenes is a retired mechanical engineer. He helped work on the Apollo moon project, the moon buggy. He will talk about the Tea Party movement.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's tough to follow beautiful music like that, but I hope you'll bear with me. I'd like to wish each one of you good afternoon. The Tea Party movement is a dynamic political movement that arose spontaneously in the United States after the election of Barack Obama in 2008. It sprang up seemingly in the nick of time to save America from what was and is perceived to be a fatal drift off course from self-government and liberty. I am a member of the Martin County Tea Party. Paralleling the national movement, we are a very loosely organized group of local people who believe in the following principles. We believe that our freedoms and our liberties come from God, not from government. We believe in a government based upon the United States Constitution. We believe in the private ownership of property. We believe in limited taxation. We believe in balanced budgets from all governments within the United States. We believe in the freedom of religion. And we believe that life is sacred. The handout sheet that is included in your program lists these principles. Though we do not, as an organization, endorse any political party or candidate, we are free as individuals to do so. Of late, we have been accused of being racist and advocates of violence. Nothing could be further from the truth. We believe in American principles, the good old-fashioned ones that made the United States the most free and prosperous nation in history. We welcome you to join us if you believe in these things too. There are no membership fees, no dues. Join us if you believe that as Americans, our birthright is personal liberty, rooted in just law and freedom to pursue our dreams as we see them. Join us if you believe that the role of government in our lives ought to be strictly limited within the bounds that the Constitution set. We have organized the Tea Party on the Square event today because we find ourselves in the eve of a crucially important national election. 51 days from today, we will choose a President of the United States, along with members of the House of Representatives and the United States Senate. The main players in executive and legislative branches of the federal government. More than at any previous time in our history, we have a choice between two sharply divergent paths. One path, the one we have been traveling in the past 4 years, will lead us deeper into central planning, regulations, with its attendant evils of grossly descended federal power and regulation, confiscatory taxation aimed at redistributing wealth and exploding national debt, which will enslave us and our children for generations to come. If we travel much further down this path, we may very well reach a point of no return. The other path, far less traveled in human affairs, is the one leading us back to limited government, fiscal sanity, and self-reliance. Though blessed and necessary if we are to remain a free people, it will not be an easy journey. As Samuel Adams said, quote, "It does not require a majority to prevail, but rather an irate, tireless minority, keen to set brush fires in people's minds. Many brush fires have been set on the road back to liberty. It will require vigilance and courage, but we can embark on this path in just 51 days. An example of one of those brush fires is, in fact, one of the most urgent threats to our very way of life. It's the national debt. Debt can be a very confusing subject. We as families and as individuals know that if we spend more than we earn, we will eventually be ruined financially. In order to avoid that ruin, we establish budgets and we stick to them. We expect government to exercise similar common sense. The reality is, however, that our federal government spending has grown at a truly alarming rate. And no budget has been allowed to pass in the United States Senate in more than 3 years. It's their constitutional duty to pass a budget. They have not passed a budget. In government language, a deficit is the sum of money spent over and above what is earned in a one-year period. The national debt, on the other hand, is the total accumulation of our deficits. At present, the national debt of the United States of America is over $16 trillion. $16 trillion. That number is so enormous that it's hard to even imagine. One way to visualize that amount is to imagine that if any one of us spent $1 million each day since the crucifixion of Christ, we would have spent only about $700 billion to this day. At that rate of spending, $1 million a day, I can't imagine that. It would take us more than 43,000 years to spend $16 trillion. Sadly, that money, our tax money, is being spent to buy votes to make each of us totally dependent upon the federal government for everything: food, health care, rent, house payments, even things like our sidewalks, our street lamps, and water and sewer systems. These are grants. They are grants from the federal government. We have to comply with federal government requirements to get our tax money back. What happens if we do not or cannot pay our debt? Prices will skyrocket. Our standard of living will plummet. Our country will not be able to defend itself. We're talking about that right now, something on the order of $1 trillion cut in our defense spending. Remember, too, that we have to pay the interest on that debt, on that gigantic debt. This debt will belong to our children and to their children. Why would we ever risk that? The Federal Reserve has just announced its intention to launch the so-called QE3, another stimulus scheme to purchase $40 billion in debt each month. Each month, $40 billion of your money and my money down the drain. How will that be done? They'll print money. It will add to our national debt. Each dollar that is printed will make the dollars that we hold in our savings accounts, and however we have our money, that money will be decreased in value. It will be worth less. When the Federal Reserve Act was passed in 1913, each dollar was worth 100 cents. I recently read that a dollar today is worth 5 cents. One of the main purposes of the Federal Reserve was to maintain our standard of living and to keep inflation under control. I used to work at a service station here in Lagodi. I figured backwards. I figured if our dollar was now worth 5 cents, 1 nickel, 5 cents, a gallon of gasoline in 1913 would have cost about 12 cents. When I worked at the service station here in Lagodi, the price of a gallon of gasoline was 19.9 cents a gallon. I think that gives us an idea of the wonderful job that the Federal Reserve is doing for us. Now a word about our economy. We believe in a free market economy. Businesses serve us. They provide goods and services to us. If the good or service is not to our liking, or if we think the price is too high, we do not buy. It's our decision. It's our agency to make that decision. If the business provides a poor product or service, it will probably fail. If we, on the other hand, have not lost anything. The business has risked its money and its time to bring services and goods to us. All we have to do is make the decision whether we want to buy it or not. How many times have you been to a service station, which is a local business, and there has not been any gasoline available? One of the things that our businesses do is put the money and the effort into making sure that the goods and the services that we want and we need are available. The business owner takes all of the risk. The business owner is actually a servant to us. And his success is our good fortune. It means that we still have available the goods and the services that we need. The fact is that small business owners are the innovators and the entrepreneurs who create most of the jobs in this country. and generate most of the wealth. They have been crippled by the ravages of central planning. I ask you, if our government takes $1 from you and gives it to your neighbor, has any wealth been created? The answer is no. Wealth is created by small businesses and large businesses who create the goods and the services that we want and that we need at a price that we can afford. Ladies and gentlemen, we are an independent, freedom-loving people. One of the founding fathers said that our system of government would last until the people found out that they could vote representatives into office who would take money from the wealthy or the producers and give it to the so-called poor. Thomas Jefferson said, a government big enough to give you everything that you want is also strong enough to take everything that you have. Perhaps we have come to take our freedoms for granted. Perhaps we have not been vigilant in remembering our founding principles and in choosing good men and women to represent us who would uphold them, our principles, our constitutional principles. Ronald Reagan famously said, prophetically, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm inviting you to join with us. If you believe in preserving the Constitution and the liberties it guarantees, you, ladies and gentlemen, each of you here today, are the present-day founding fathers of this great nation. You and I can save this great country by voting on November the 6th. May God bless you and yours. Thank you.